Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unleashing Potentials podcast. So, joining me today is Donna from Canada, very close to Toronto. Where about in Canada you are? I know it's close to Toronto.
Yeah, so I'm in a city called Waterloo, which is about 2 hours west of Toronto. Well
Oh,
known.
okay. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard of Waterloo.
Have
Oh,
you?
yeah. I've
Not
never
just the
been there.
ABBA song.
No, I've never been there, but I've heard of it. That's really
Yeah.
cool. What's the weather like? Because we've been suffocating with smoke on and off.
Yeah, you guys are a lot closer to the fires there. We've seen it a bit. It's like been hazy, and the
Mhm.
last couple of days have been just kind of cold and rainy. But I
Mhm.
mean, cold. Cold is relative, right? So
Mhm. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, welcome to the Unleashing Potentials podcast.
thank you. Happy to be
Welcome.
here.
So happy to have you. This is my
Yeah,
playground. I love when other people come and play with me and share their stories and journey,
that's
including
good.
my cat behind me.
We have some company. I love it.
Mhm. Yeah, so Donna, why don't you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Okay, so I am a little bit different. So I'm a dominatrix, a
Mm.
sexual high priestess. I do mindset coaching, trauma recovery. I'm an author. I have all of these things. I just wield them in together. And basically, the overarching theme is helping people to learn how to surrender.
Mm.
And whether that's in the dungeon or with psychedelics or with mindset coaching, it's all about really being able to drop in and surrender and get back in touch with who you are at the core,
Mhm.
dropping the bullshit and being able to show up as who you
Mhm.
are.
Mhm. Nice. I love that. I'm
Thanks.
so excited for us to dive deep into this conversation. I can tell it's going to be a really, really good one. Um, what is dominatrix for those who don't know what it means?
Okay. So in case anybody's been, hasn't been following the 50 Shades of Grey book that came out a long time ago, which was a terrible book, but it was great for exposing it was great for just getting it out into the world. So a dominatrix is somebody who uh high level beats people for a living, but
Mhm.
consensually. And the idea is that the dungeon becomes a space for you to surrender, for you to let go. A lot of people come in because they are always large and in charge, and they want that balance. They want to let go, but they have a hard time. So some people go for massage and some people go for a dominatrix session.
Mm.
It's the same outcome, but different ways of getting there.
Oh, okay, okay, that's really cool. It sounds like a sci-fi movie. So cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really cool. Um, so what do you do when you're working with dominatrix? That's gonna be a hard word for me to say. Yeah, give me some scenarios how you work with people using what you do.
Okay, so let me break it down. There's like two facets to it. So
Mhm.
I work with people on what I would say both sides of the whip. So there are the people who come in and like I said, they have, perhaps they have fantasies of surrendering. They're like often the really, high powered executive, or they run their own company and they want that counterbalance.
Mhm.
And so they would come in and, there would be a lot of protocol as far as getting to know what's okay, what's not okay, a deep dive discussion on what's going on, where they're coming from,
Mhm.
for me to take a look at where their psychology is, where is their mind with it, so that when they actually come in for sessions and are, surrendering to me, then I can take all of that into factor and make sure that they're safe on all levels, physically, emotionally, psychologically. And in that, then when they step into the dungeon, it's my control. It's my say of what happens. I get to be in charge,
Mhm.
and that's part of it. So if they know what's going on, they're still being in charge. So if they actually want to let go, then they got to come in, and it's completely up to me.
Mhm.
The other side of the whip is, and typically more often it's women who take that training, where it is learning to dominate. And it's not necessarily that they want to be a dominatrix themselves,
Mhm.
but when you learn to take somebody down in the dungeon, it becomes easy to just step up in your business or in the boardroom, become that leader when you've learned those skills, because it's transferable and it becomes an embodiment piece
Mhm.
for them to learn to be in charge, not take any, crap from people, but doing it in a way that, typically women, if they haven't learned to embrace their power, they come into the boardroom and they're very harsh. And
Mm,
so we're often accused of being, the B word. Um, and it's because they haven't learned how to really assert their boundaries without being aggressive. And so in this training, it teaches them how to be assertive without being aggressive, because you embody that piece of I'm in charge and this is the way it's going.
mhm, mhm.
Of course it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that because obviously we all know women's history, how much they've struggled in the
Yeah.
past and even up to this day in society where, we always are looked down upon in the workplace and our careers and parenting and everything that we do. Uh,
Hmm.
there are those who are always judging women, even though they're doing the best that they can. And that
Yeah,
goes for parenting as well. Uh,
absolutely.
I love what you're doing because you're empowering women. You're reminding them who they are and how they should step up and fully
Hmm.
embrace who they are, regardless of what people say.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that.
Thanks.
Mhm,
Yeah, and, I wanna just speak to also the fact that it's, women of color have it even doubly. Like, I
mhm,
recognize that I do have white privilege, and
mhm,
so this need for the empowerment is even more for women of color
mhm,
because it's been doubly oppressive.
mhm,
It breaks my
mhm,
heart, really.
mhm, mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, I love this already. Um, because that's a topic that's so hard to talk about and that needs to be talked about. I remember
yeah,
on Women's History Month this year, that's something I talked about. And I'm hoping to keep talking about it because you're right. It's tricky because it's not that we're saying other people don't experience hardships or
yeah,
inequality or things that are unfair because everyone from any race experience those. It's
yes,
acknowledging that because someone is a certain way that they get more or less, right? It's speaking what we see versus putting on a mask to pretend that it's not there.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
It is.
there's, this piece for women, and where I like to come from is this whole sexual empowerment, you know,
Mhm,
looking at it head on, because the majority of what has gone on as far as women's oppression has been around our sexuality. And, me stepping into the dominatrix world, and, I am now financially very empowered. I am sexually very empowered. I'm in charge in the dungeon.
mhm,
It is all of the pieces that have been missing from female empowerment. And a lot of, women are doing, like, goddess retreats and things that's like, yeah, that's good, but we're kind of still just touching the surface here.
mhm,
When you get to the place where, women have complete control and autonomy over their sexual being,
mhm,
then it changes the dynamic. And I think that our, who we are as sexual beings has been the piece that has scared so many, and that's what leads to that oppression. It's the way I see it anyway.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I agree. Now let's dive a bit deeper into the sexual part. I
Hmm.
know every single culture has their own ways of approaching sex, of talking about it. There are those who have faced a lot of sexual trauma from the
Mm,
childhood and adulthood. I'm one of those person, and I know there are other people. Some are very brave to come forward like me to say this happened to me and this is
hmm.
what I'm going to do about it to make sure it doesn't happen to the next little girl or woman.
Yeah,
Um do you work with clients, who have dealt with so much trauma, they don't even wanna be intimate with their partners,
absolutely.
and they don't love their body or sexual organs, they just don't.
Yeah, that is a very big thing, and, I have my own history with sexual trauma, so I've always had that, piece that I've pulled people in who have the same,
Mhm.
same trauma, not the same, but
Mhm.
there is. So I've been doing trauma recovery work for the last 30 years. I feel it is a critical piece in our development as human beings, for
Mhm.
women especially,
Mhm.
but men too. Men have a lot of sexual trauma. It's
Mhm.
not talked about in the same way,
Mhm.
because there's other factors, but definitely, to me, I think that the majority of the world, if we started to heal, like really heal the sexual trauma,
Mhm.
so many of the things would change, because there's so much shame around sex. There's so much of this, overlaying yuck.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
because we can't openly talk about sex in most countries, not everywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
the US, they're, oh my goodness, it's terrible. Canada's a lot more open. Some parts of Europe are quite open. But I truly believe that if we could talk about it in an open, very empowering kind of way, have
Mhm.
education, there would
Mhm.
be less of the yuck
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we can get back in touch with, like, okay, you know what? As a female body, we are designed, like by design,
Mhm.
here to have pleasure.
Yeah.
Like, this is the right. And, but to reclaim that does take some work. We do have to
Yeah.
heal our trauma and then step into
Mhm.
reclaiming it.
Mhm. Yeah, you're right. Um, yeah, yeah, Canada is open, all right. In grade 10, I was putting condoms on bananas in class, so
Yes.
that's as open as it gets, even more. Uh, I had to adjust to it because I was adopted growing up in Haiti. It's taboo. Okay, that's
Mm,
something you would talk about with your partner, not even families, right? That wasn't for them to know, let
mm,
alone a community or culture talking about it. Because of the silence that is there still in probably many other countries, sexual traumas are not talked about,
yeah,
right? Because for
yeah.
me, it happened with my dad's landlord and a family member, and parents or people, family members, friends, they sometimes don't believe what that person is expressing to them that they're experiencing. So they shut down, not just
Mhm,
sexually, but physically. They don't like themselves, they don't like pleasure. And spiritually, they
mhm.
rebelled. Or for me, I believing in God, I'm like, God, I'm mad at you, for allowing that to happen. And
Yeah,
emotionally, it just impacts us in so many ways that until we find the bravery to dig up all those buried toxic emotions, then some people, it just suffocates them throughout their life and they're just not living or having fun.
yeah, very true. It is really sad, the long-term effects of trauma.
Mhm.
And in particular, and it's not even like the trauma is one thing, but it is actually, I think it's actually more harmful when you have situations where you're not believed,
Mm.
or, heaven forbid, you were blamed. That was my story with one of my abusers. I was blamed
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
it was
Yeah.
my fault,
Yeah.
and which is crazy making.
Mhm.
But yeah, we need to reclaim this. We need to
Excuse
be
me.
given open spaces to be able to talk about it and say, you know what, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and there's the shame that ties to it by society. Um,
Mhm,
what I found with society is, obviously we are society, collectively we make up society,
mhm,
but I feel pulled in so many different directions where I become exhausted and restless. Here I'm told, hey, go see a therapist and talk about it. And then on the other hand, if I'm telling a friend, oh, that happened so long ago, how come you're still not over it? And a family member, you were so young. I don't even recall when that happened, right? So I'm left with a bleeding wound to figure out how to heal it myself, even though
mhm.
there are those around me that could have helped me, not do it for me, but teach me how to do it. What are your
Absolutely.
thoughts on that?
Well, it's really hard to help somebody else when you still have your own wounds.
Mm.
And I would strongly suspect that the people who are giving you those messages of like, "Oh, that was so long ago. Why aren't you over it?" Or "I barely remember that."
Mhm.
They've probably learned to just shut it off, compartmentalize it. And
Mhm.
in order to shut that off, we often have to shut off our sexual desire as well. And
Mhm.
this is where, coming back to your point of, women who are not able to receive pleasure, who don't feel good about having sex,
Mhm.
often it is that unresolved trauma because in order to keep that sequestered, it's like anything that gets remotely close to it
Mhm.
has to be cut off.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
so, the the long-term or deeper solution is everybody needs to heal from their trauma.
Mhm.
You can't support somebody else. I don't believe you can support somebody else if you have not healed your own. Once you have, it's a whole lot easier to hold somebody's like hold their hand and hold space for them and to be there without judgment
Mhm.
and then hear their stories of okay, what was it you went through? I
Mhm.
just,
Yeah.
say it and it's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
None of like that reinforcement of it's not your fault.
Mhm. Mhm.
It
Yeah.
happened to you, but it does not have to define who you are anymore. And I think that's really a big message that may not come from family members. It may need to come from professionals or people who have already done deep healing
Mhm.
with this work. Then they can support you in the way that you really need.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I agree. And not everyone is open to see professionals. I wasn't open. It's like, here I am. Yeah, this person is qualified, and I'm gonna, you know, open the bag of garbage that I've been buried, even though it stinks. Um, for me, up to this day, there's still shame tied to it.
Hmm.
It goes to self hate, right? Even though all of us are aware that we're supposed to love ourselves, but when we have to deal with those traumas, all the emotions come back, all the
Hmm.
memories come back, all the feelings come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to anyone, men, woman, um, who are trying to heal from trauma, specifically sexual trauma?
Um, so what I would hold out first of all is it's like even if you don't believe it 100%, hold on to this tiny little nugget, plant the seed that it was never your fault
Hmm.
and you can release all of the feelings about it.
Hmm.
If you once you hold on to that, then the advice is to start really looking and noticing, you know, what professionals are easy to talk to,
Hmm.
who make you feel comfortable and when you share a bit about what happened, they don't re-traumatize you. If you go to somebody and it feels a bit icky to talk about it, that may not be the right person because just because they have the letters or credentials or they say that they do this work, I
Hmm.
have met way too many who are doing trauma work who should not be anywhere near trauma people
Wow.
because they have not healed their own stuff.
Hmm.
And so when something comes up and you tell them what happened, they're like, "Oh my God." Right? Like that's it's like, whoa, re-victimize.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have worked with people who have had extreme trauma, like cult, satanic worship kind of ritual stuff,
Wow.
which is intense.
Hmm.
And I have done so much work on myself that I can hold that space.
Hmm.
It's uncomfortable for me, but I don't make them wrong. I don't judge them. And I really work at not having any reaction that would reinforce that that was something bad that they need to be ashamed of. It's happened to them, as a child, you don't have control.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so it's not about them, but it's about that healing. And so those would be the pieces that I would suggest. I don't believe that trauma work is something you should do on your own.
No.
I do have that belief. Just because you cannot be your own therapist and the patient at the same time with the level of work that you need to do for trauma.
Hmm. Hmm.
It
You're
just is.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, for many people, they feel like they're a burden to friends, to society, to family, to
Hmm.
therapists. Um, how can these people, myself included, I'm getting better, how
Good.
can we lift all those beliefs that'll really crippling us and they're not helping.
Okay, so let me go back to some of the basic beliefs that I have, and this is, this is my spiritual belief, is that we are, I believe in like the oneness kind of concept.
Mhm,
So we're all part of this collective.
mhm,
You're an expression of oneness, I'm an expression of oneness. And so there's a connection between us
yeah.
because of that. The other part of my belief is that there is no right or wrong. The idea of right and wrong is a polarity system that we set up in order to be able to judge ourselves.
Mhm.
Now, intrinsically, it works better as a society if we don't do things like, stabbing each other and stealing each other's stuff. And, it really does work better that way.
Yeah.
But to get into a fundamentalist idea of something is absolutely right or absolutely wrong puts us in this loop of judgment. Okay.
Mhm,
So that's the basic premise. If we can start to step into this idea of there's nothing wrong, which also extends to there is nothing wrong with me,
mhm, mhm,
then you start to step out of it. So it's not like taking each individual little piece, you're like stepping out on a bigger concept.
mhm,
And in that, when you let go of making yourself wrong, then you can also start to notice that, oh, a lot of the things that I have been feeling may not even be mine.
mhm,
And that's another really big component. I find that a lot of people who are more energy sensitive, they're aware, also end up being sponges.
mhm,
And so much of what we think is ours because we feel it in our bodies
mhm,
is not ours. And if we can take a deep breath and go, okay, what if I let go of what's not mine?
mhm.
And then you're left with a very small piece to work on instead of this big, overwhelming thing that you've taken on from the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So those would be my first couple of concepts. I know that they're kind of bigger, to think in terms of there's no right or wrong is very challenging for people. And it is a daily practice,
Mhm,
but it can provide so much freedom, especially when we're talking about trauma recovery.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I can definitely respect and accept your perspective on it. I love, you should have a quote for that, what you just said. Yeah, there's no right or wrong. I
Yeah.
love that because it gives your clients room because we feel that we're supposed to be fit in a box.
Mhm.
Yes, you're right. No, you're wrong. There's no
Yeah,
breathing room for mistakes and learning and for growth. And I think that also hinders people from their personal journey in life.
absolutely.
Hmm,
Yeah.
hmm.
And
Yeah.
as someone who's rarely fitting in any box,
Soul sister.
I'm like, there's a box? Really?
Hmm,
Yeah.
hmm.
But
Yeah.
even for me, I find that I can get caught up in it, particularly around business. And, so I've actually labeled it the cult of business
Hmm,
because there's this drive and this hustle, and, you're only successful if you meet some financial marker,
hmm,
which is arbitrary and ever moving. But all of the things that's it's like what we're told we need to do and be and have in order to be qualified as successful.
hmm,
But
hmm,
if we let go of this, again, coming around, if there's no right or wrong, then there's no right way to do business and there's no wrong way to do business. And
hmm,
then it becomes, what do I enjoy?
hmm,
What do I love?
hmm.
What
Yeah, I love
feels
that.
good?
Yeah. For me, that was a loop that I was trapped in until very recently.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm in Haiti, it's not like we're lazy, but we put our time with family. Obviously, people work and whatnot, but we don't work until we're ill.
That's
uh,
good.
we don't go to school until we're brain dead. I'm not against education, but when I came here, it was a different system and culture I had to adapt to, and it
Mm-hmm.
pushed me to my limit until my brain and body just give out.
Yeah.
Because I was doing two jobs, a toddler, full five classes at university,
Oh
and
my
then
goodness.
studying and all of it. Out of nowhere, that's when my mental health issues started. And I crashed and I had to stop. And my life, it has never been the same since. And then throughout the years, I had health issues and chronic back pain and all of it. right?
Mhm.
Um, to go back with what you were saying, until recently, I felt that I wasn't doing anything or achieving anything because that's what the people around me were doing, and that's what they were told, and
Mhm.
it somehow impacts me. Um, One, I've been very clear and honest throughout the podcast and video. Does it hurt my ego a little bit? Yeah, but I'm going against it and past it. I'm not married. I don't own a car. I don't have a husband. I'm not looking to have one. But those are all cultural expectations that
They are.
I'm not meeting. Like, I don't need a car to have value. It would be great to have one. It would break my bank account. That saves me that. I'm not against it. And marriage, the way I saw my dad treating my mom, I always say I don't want to get married and I have my reasons, right? It's just go, go, go and achieve and achieve and achieve. Until
Mhm.
recently I crashed. I'm like, I doubted my self-worth because I don't have a degree under my name or degrees, and I don't have a job I go to, but I realize, wait a minute, you're working because you're helping people. And that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
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 Good for you. Yeah,
Hmm.
there's so many different ways to choose to live.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
that heteronormative is only one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Let's talk about voodoo-wielding vixen. I only get voodoo out of that, but please explain.
So I had a friend of mine help me to create. We were just kind of spicing up the bio. So
Yeah.
we pulled on that. I forgot about that there is an actual voodoo religion.
Yes.
I may have to revamp that again, but mostly it was to talk about the fact that I've have a lot of, talents and abilities in the energy realm,
Mm-hmm.
energy healing. I'm what's called a sexual high priestess. So really helping people to get into their sex magic, the
Mm-hmm.
sex energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's that, the vixen piece, of course, is, just kind of something spicy again to talk to all of
Mm-hmm.
the sex pieces that are overlapping in what I do.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's really cool. Yeah, when I think of wielding, I don't know, there's different meaning to it, right? It's
Mhm.
how people look at it. Is it deconstructing and putting together in the best
It
way possible? That's just
Yeah,
how my
it's a lot of
mind
that.
thought of.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah.
Um, you don't have to, but give me an example or a scenario of what an appointment with you would look like with a client.
Okay, so it really depends on what they're coming in for. So,
Mhm,
um, whatever kind of session we're doing, the first thing is a good in-depth intake of what's your history, what do you want as an outcome, why do you want those things? Really getting to know. For me, I need to get to know people on a emotional, psychological level.
mhm,
Then from there, we'll look at where their comfort level is, what their desired outcomes are, and then determine, do we just need to be talking and
mhm,
doing the mindset coaching in which it's reprogramming the subconscious mind, changing the formats, releasing the trauma that way. There's body work that can be physically working on the trauma and releasing that.
mhm,
And then there's, I mentioned before, there's the DOM training and there's the DOM sessions.
mhm,
So there's lots of different tools and modalities that are available,
mhm,
and it depends on what the person needs or desires.
mhm, mhm. I love that. And I love that you help clients where they are.
Yeah.
Because many times I feel with some therapies I've had, I wasn't being met where I was at, and I was
Mm,
rushed to be in places I wasn't healing or ready to go to. So I
yeah.
appreciate that you do that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Um, yeah, you mentioned the subconscious mind.
Yes.
Um, that's a beautiful turmoil place for some. Oh man. Okay, let me tell you, I've been trying, I do meditation, to sleep, and it's
Beautiful.
for a year. Um, I've been trying to do inner child healing,
Mhm.
I swear, every time I have to press play, I exit. It's like there's knots in my guts and I can't do it. I can't go back. I don't know why. I don't know when I'll be ready, but I have it saved on my playlist to do. I can't. And it's so scary. I'm not ready to be cut again.
So, so the big thing that I know with the subconscious mind is that the sole purpose of your subconscious mind is to keep you safe.
Yes.
And the majority of what is programmed in with your subconscious mind happened before the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got this, like, I always say it's like a 5-year-old is running the show.
Mm.
And the 5-year-old is like, I want cookies. And they're like, just temper tantrum. I want cookies. You've got kids, so you understand this. So it's like, they'll get fixated on that one thing. It's like, no,
Mhm.
we can't talk about going out. We're not going to the library. I want cookies. I'm going to stand here and I'm going to rant and rave until you got cookies. When you realize that that's what's kind of going on with your subconscious mind, it's a matter of getting in and doing the training with the subconscious mind, getting it on board so that it trusts you.
Mhm.
Then you can do the rewiring, reprogramming, however you want to call it. But initially, yeah, your subconscious mind is going to fight you because it's going to be like, no way, we're good. No, no, I've got control.
Mhm.
No, you're not in here.
Mhm.
So you may need a different modality, a new way into the subconscious mind than that. Your
Mhm.
subconscious is clearly saying, no, we're not ready for it. So find a different vehicle in.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I've been trying to. I started to do a separate meditation,
Mm-hmm.
and then the lady started talking about a house, and then she said, "Go down in the basement. There are different doors in that basement." And she described what was in each door. I get to number two, and I got out of there. I just paused everything, and it was too much because in there she said, open the first door. There was shame and guilt waiting and grief. The second one, trauma, and she described the trauma and other things in there. I'm like, lady, that's enough. I don't know you. What telling me which door to open? So I still didn't finish that meditation. Is it because it wasn't good? Absolutely not. It was just what you said. Uh, just a fight to get that healing done.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot to look at all at once to open up door number one where you got guilt and shame,
Yeah.
and then you're opening up a door for trauma, and then who else, who knows what in the rest of the doors.
Mhm.
To me, that's a lot. Like maybe look around for some other. If you like the hypnosis route, just find some ones that are you know easing in there a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'll try different ways.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there may be like I'm just getting called to say this, but it's the imagery of going to a basement is rather hard for a lot of people.
Mhm.
So, okay. So what I'm getting is that like on an epigenetic level, you're also tapping into the trauma of your ancestors. And so the
Mm,
basement would have been where, slaves were put, or,
mm,
that is a very traumatic place to take yourself to. I
mhm,
would not recommend that imagery.
mhm, mhm.
Maybe one that takes you to like a magical fairy park, or,
Yeah.
you know, somewhere that's less like somewhere that is not, um,
Mhm.
it's not a real place.
Yeah, yeah,
Go
yeah.
to an imagined place would be an easier way in, as opposed to trying to just drum up all the trauma all at once. Like, wow,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
get
you're
off my
right.
soapbox.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's amazing that you mentioned that. I've been doing a lot of past life regressions, and oh, they're very real.
Yeah.
I learned that I was a slave in the 1800s, and I was in love with a British guy. Um, yeah, and after I had that vision, I used to have neck pain because they used to put the chain and everything else. That
Hmm.
stopped. So that
Oh,
was another
cool.
way of going through it. Yeah,
Yeah,
do you believe in that stuff before I dive into
absolutely.
it? Okay, okay.
Yeah.
I always tread very carefully. So I
Yeah, it's not everybody's belief. And I always, yeah, I tread carefully with it. I'm saying it's like either, maybe some people believe in past lives, other people believe in, genetic passing
Mhm,
down through the lineage.
mhm,
Either
mhm,
way, whether it's real or not, it gets stuck in the body.
mhm.
And I've had tremendous results with people diving into past lives.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's one thing I listen to lots is past life regressions. They're my favorite before bed. I have a friend, she's a medium. She's like, "Well, why don't you listen to something nice, something nicer before bed?" I said, "No, that I want to know why I am who I am, the way I am." And I've learned just so much. It's so incredible.
Nice.
Wow. And then when it comes to family issues, I've always felt distant or not connected to my family that are on earth here. And
Yeah.
one of them passed away in a past life, and the rest, all of them got killed together. So I learned that the disconnection is not just from this life, it's a replica of different energies and things connected to that.
Hmm.
Really cool. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Have you done any past life stuff?
I've done, yeah. I mean, it continues to come up, but I think I started, oh my goodness, when would that have been? 95. I started really 94, 95. Yeah, somewhere around there. I really started to poke around, and it was amazing. I had some experiences where like reliving it in the body.
Yeah.
Close my eyes and I'm like, I'm there. I'm right there. I'm
Mhm.
feeling the pain. I'm feeling like somebody's killing me. It was just, when you first go through, you're like, this is crazy making. I think I'm like need
Oh
to
yeah.
check myself in, you know. This is I think I'm
Yeah.
losing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now because I've done enough of that work now, when I'm doing it cognitively, I can just kind of let myself drop in, like kind of a meditative space, drop in, connect with it, get the lesson, and
Mhm.
I don't have to relive the experience.
Mhm.
So I'm more observing it as opposed to letting myself relive it, because what I've found is that reliving it is not necessarily any more effective, and it can be re-traumatizing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, it was for me when I saw that my sister was shot uh, through drug dealing, and the gunman was chasing me and other people, and then she got shot. That must have been 1800 or prior to. I don't know why I go back to those times, but I could see her laying in a hospital. There was a tiny bed, and the nurse, I don't know what they were in the head, and I don't know, it's different than what they
hmm.
were today. It was just wiping her forehead with like a wet cloth or something, and then I was standing in the hallway panicking, and she looked at me and took her last breath,
Mm.
and I woke up, I was so sad. And then I have a friend who's a medium, she guides me with all of those, just to make sure I'm not losing my actual mind. But yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love past life. They can have lots of meaning and healing
yeah,
to them. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go next to you describe, you help alpha men and women. Um, I think some people misunderstand the word alpha. Please let them know what it means.
Yeah, there's a couple of different thoughts as far as alpha. So Um, alpha in a broad term would be the person who likes to be in the leadership role. They typically are in charge, and they'll be the ones to just step into that role automatically and easily.
Mhm,
Um, and then there's also like in the more strict sense, an alpha um is the person who is so driven that they like have blinders on to what's going on with other people.
mhm,
So what I describe to people is that, in the dungeon, I help the alpha men to become better leaders by
mhm,
helping them to learn how to surrender, because that's the piece that's missing.
mhm,
They have gotten where they are,
Mhm.
by being assertive, possibly aggressive, always taking charge, and they just go for it. And they've learned that that works. But if they actually want to become a more rounded individual and leader, then you need the other side. And nobody has challenged them so far. Like,
Mhm.
that's the thing. Whereas with alpha women, it's often about balancing out and bringing in the softness again, but it's from the embodiment of their sexuality.
Mhm.
And they may need to learn how to take somebody down in the dungeon in order to balance this out so that they feel a truer expression of power that's not power over, it's power with.
Mhm.
And that's the piece where I want to get people to is being able to be with, but still be okay. I'm gonna choose to be the leader, but it's a leader with as opposed to
Mhm.
over.
Mhm. Wow, I love that. You've added new meaning for me when it comes
Oh,
to
cool.
that word. Um, Obviously, with different cultures, we're gonna go there. With different cultures, there are different, I'm not gonna even call them guidelines, controlling situations where men or above women above everyone else, at least in my culture. I don't know for other places, I won't speak for that. Um, but that's the mentality that I grew up in and seeing. And then I came to Canada, I'm seeing both happen at times equally, right? Where women are in leadership and men are in leadership. And
Hmm.
sometimes they collaborate and elevate each other, even though we need more elevations. But it is happening within Canada and many other places. What are your thoughts on, those people who misunderstand and use that word to damage men and women? Because there are some pretty strong, powerful women. They don't need to have testicles to be who they are, right? They're gonna step up and just get it done, and they get
Hmm.
misunderstood as loud, crazy freak when really they've found themselves. They're living in their peace in the now. What are your
Hmm.
thoughts?
I think a lot of the poo-pooing about women who are leaders and being called a bitch or being called worse, it's this comes back to this piece that we talked about before where um as a society, and I'll a little bit general, but typically men
Mhm.
are afraid of women's sexual power,
Mm,
and that gets translated into everywhere else. And so it's really only been the last 100 years that women have been actively in the workforce and rising up. I mean,
mhm,
yes, we've been in the workforce longer than that, but really the last 100 years.
mhm,
So we don't have a long history of being in here.
mhm,
We have our women who led ahead of us in the 80s, and they had to do it from a male way. They had to
mhm,
come in and show up. They wore the big
mhm,
padded shoulder jackets, looked like men, and acted like men.
mhm,
And now we're starting to find ways to come in and bring who we are and lead who we are, as opposed to having to do it like the men do.
mhm,
But I think really my advice would go to the women who are receiving those slangs,
mhm,
and just understand that it's their own insecurities, that they just don't know how to be with a powerful woman. And
mhm,
that's okay.
mhm, mhm,
That's theirs. It has nothing to do with the woman. If she's constantly checking in on, am I leading to be a control freak,
mhm,
or am I leading to be the empowered, compassionate leader?
mhm,
That's her journey. It's not for anybody else to say that's right or that's wrong.
mhm.
And other people's judgments, we can't stop them. Like, there's always going to be things. I constantly get people labeling me as all kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
Yeah,
boy. You know what? I think the way that someone judges someone is a reflection of who they truly are.
absolutely. It
And
speaks to what they're not comfortable with, right?
yeah.
If you poo-poo somebody for having power, it's because you're not comfortable with your own power, or you're not comfortable with how you're wielding your power,
Mhm, mhm,
or you feel like you should have all the power, right? Like it's it's never just one thing, but it does speak to what's going on with them.
And sometimes it can be coming from a place of pain.
Hmm.
So I learn over time to differentiate, hey, is this person hurting to the point that they want to bring others down because they're screaming for help?
Hmm.
How can I shed light into their darkness and what they're going through? Or on the other hand, they're just complete assholes and want to destroy any type of hope anybody have, just to
Hmm.
make themselves feel bigger, even though they know they feel small, even though they
Yeah.
know what they've done is wrong, right? It's learning to pick from the both and make the best.
Yeah. And I would add a third element to this, in that along the lines of the second group,
Mm-hmm,
there's understanding that there's a group of people who get off on the other person's reaction. So
mm-hmm,
they feed off of your reaction. So this is the narcissistic personality.
mm-hmm,
They want a reaction, good, bad, or otherwise.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And the best thing we can do for ourselves is no reaction.
mm-hmm,
So, and I know for myself it's hard. It's like I always want to, like, hey, teachable moment here. Like, if you don't do this, you won't be such an ass, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, but it doesn't serve anybody to do that, because what they're looking for is a reaction. And the only reason I'm trying to teach them is because I feel they're wrong. So they're getting their fix. They're getting to get off on my trying to teach them
mm-hmm,
something.
mm-hmm,
And so that for me is like a good shift in the perspective, because it's like, no, you don't, especially in my world, you don't get to get that with for free. Like,
mm-hmm,
no.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those people who look for the reaction from us, they're feeding.
They are.
It's like a hungry beast that's never satisfied.
Yeah.
And ba based on the reaction, they know how to trigger us.
Yeah.
But when we stop giving them the attention, when they're in their pity party trying to get our reaction, then they learn that it doesn't work with us, so they go to the next person to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's knowing who we are and stepping into our power and staying there
Yeah.
and not putting up with any type of bullshit
Yeah.
from people. Yeah. Let's talk about your books.
Okay.
Tell me more. What are the names and what inspired you to write them?
Okay, so the main book that I love to promote is called Inner Dominatrix Guide to Become a Badass in Business.
Mm-hmm,
And that one has a lot of stories from the dungeon and how they correlate to your mindset in business, which is also about leadership.
mm-hmm,
So that one has lots of tools in it, lots of techniques to really start to step into these concepts. Um, and then I've got a book called Beyond Fear, which is great little daily nuggets to help you, again, stepping out of those pieces. There's
mm-hmm,
exercises in it.
mm-hmm,
Um, Two of them are like workbooks that are more related to courses, but still published books. And then the fifth one is a compilation book, so one that I have a chapter in with some other remarkable business people.
mm-hmm.
And book number 6, which I'm working on now, is the basic concept of it is like a Eat, Pray, Love meets 50 Shades of Grey. So looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to that one coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are amazing books, and I think
Thank
they're
you.
needed. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love your energy that you do what you do with such grace and power,
Thank
and
you.
you do it unapologetically.
Mhm.
That's my English. There are some words I just don't say them because I struggle to say them. But I know you know what I mean.
Absolutely. I thought you did good with it.
I won't say it again. I might practice it after.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
tell me.
English is a
Yeah.
tough language.
Oh my gosh. Don't get me
It's
started on it. It's hard. And when
Yeah.
people say it's easy, I'm like,
Oh no. No, no. English is one of the worst languages to learn. It's because we have rules, but then the rules don't apply.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, when I was going to school, I struggled so bad. I still struggle.
Oh yeah.
Past tense, present. I'm like, feel, felt. It's just all the different interesting stuff in there. And
Yeah.
it's barely right the way we write sentence or put it together. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard. I had to learn English. It was very hard. Very, very
Well,
hard.
you've done well. Good on
Yeah,
you.
good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about your company? Seven figure.
So I have run I used to run a massage supply outlet. So I
Mm-hmm.
had supplies for the massage and spa industry. I had a couple of massage therapy clinics. My first career was as a massage therapist. I did that for 24 years and then, gradually added in all of the
Mm-hmm.
pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So at this
Oh.
point I work a lot with seven-figure owners because I do understand that the challenges and the staffing and all of the things that come with when you're in that million to 5 million mark.
Mm-hmm.
There are different challenges than when you're getting up to 1 million.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be hard, especially with any businesses. But if I don't know anything about business, I know how to talk and I have a story. Right? I don't even have a website yet because I can't figure that out yet, but the time will come.
Yeah.
But I know there are so many hungry leaders out there, and
Hmm.
the work you're doing is feeding their passion. It's just
Thank you.
adding fuel to ignite their fire. So I appreciate that about you and what you do.
Thank you.
Mhm. Do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom, encouragements for those who are listening to get their shit together?
I would come back around to this piece that we talked about no right or wrong, and to really apply that to yourself. It's like, what if nothing you choose is wrong,
Mhm.
and you focused in instead on what brings me joy,
Mhm.
what lights me up, what gets me what gets me excited to get up in the morning and dive into it.
Mhm.
Because whatever it is that you're doing, there's going to be work, physical work.
Mhm.
But if it's something that you're like, oh, I feel so alive doing this, then it doesn't feel like work. It's
Mhm.
easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a big part of that is to get out of making yourself wrong and
Mhm.
do what lights you up.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I agree. To wrap up the episode, I normally ask five-second questions.
Okay.
The first one is, what does potential mean to you?
I think this is this, space of something unknown, something there that's like, ooh, something's coming. It's like Christmas with the presents. There's the potential of like, ooh, I wonder what it's gonna be.
Yeah, I love that. What is your favorite song?
Oh my goodness. I have so many favorite songs. I always hate it when people say, "What's your favorite something?" I'm like, I draw a
There's
blank. I don't
lots.
know.
Yeah.
You know what? For today, we'll go with Shania Twain's "I Feel Like a Woman."
Oh,
It's one of my
know
favorites. I
that
love her
one.
stuff.
Oh, I love her song. I
Oh,
love it.
she's so
I
good.
love her just the way she puts
Yeah,
the lyrics, and she's a powerhouse. Let's just leave it
she
there.
is.
You don't mess with her at all.
Love her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Who is your favorite author other than yourself?
um, hmm. Business wise, I really Mike McAllowitz. I really enjoy his books. He's
Mm.
got some good stuff. And then I'm a big John Grisham fan. I think I've read all of his books.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What are his
Yeah.
books about? I've never
He's
heard of.
he comes from the lawyer world, and so his
Mhm.
books are like more thriller, not the high, chase impact, but it's more intellectual thriller. So
Mhm.
you're following the threads, and yeah, I love the whodunits, and I
Mhm.
remember growing up with Nancy Drew. Loved
Oh,
the Nancy
nice.
Drew
That's
books as a kid.
awesome. Yeah. Do you like cats or dogs?
Cats.
Oh, nice. I have
Yeah.
cats.
Yay.
Drive me nuts, but they're so cool.
I know.
Jumping everywhere, scratching everything, and I love them. Last question. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, see, there's again. It's that favorite thing.
I
I
like
hate, I
making
think I hate
people
picking
think.
picking, picking favorites. I don't know. One of them would be Shawshank Redemption would be one that's really kind to my mind.
Oh,
That was
nice. That's
powerful.
awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Donna, Canadian to Canadian. Uh,
Yes.
oh man, I've loved this conversation so much that I want to have it again. So you're welcome to come back anytime
Thank you.
to share anything that is on your heart. I love what
Fabulous.
you do. There's such deep meaning and a profound sense of peace, knowing that there are those like you out there who are ready to help
Yeah.
us unleash it all and become the best of ourselves. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, bye.